I was brought up toting slammers. Like, so my belt had to be extra tight. You feel me?
As this accused Bloods gang leader and rapper on the rise tried to counter the government's claims that he's a killer drug lord who terrorized his own community.
Brooklyn has produced its share of legends, artists, hustlers, visionaries, and cautionary tales. But few names echo with as much controversy, mystery, and raw street lore as Rod Diggs. To some, he was a gifted rapper on the brink of breaking through. To others, he was a feared figure whose reputation stretched far beyond the studio. His rise, his music, and ultimately his downfall formed a story that blurred the line between reality and myth. This is the story of Rod Diggs. Ronald Herron was born on March 30th, 1982, in Brooklyn, New York. Long before the world knew him as Rod Diggs, he was just a kid growing up in one of the toughest environments the city had to offer, the Gowanus houses, a sprawling housing project in the heart of Brooklyn. He was raised by his mother, a woman trying to hold things together in a neighborhood where survival itself could feel like a full-time job. Money was tight, opportunities were scarce, and the streets had a way of shaping children early. For kids in Gowanus, growing up fast wasn't a choice. It was reality.
Gowanus projects, GP rap.
No question.
Mad city, man.
No question.
Words. It's mad dog world out here, you know?
Despite the danger outside, Ronald was known as a quiet, observant kid. But the world around him was loud. Sirens, tension, police presence, crews, and conflicts that simmered beneath everyday life. And in this environment, childhood innocence didn't last long. By the time he was 12, Ronald had already seen more violence than most people witness in their entire lifetime. But nothing would leave a deeper mark than what happened in 1994.
Remember, we ain't called y'all out here just for one day. We called you out here because we want to put an end to these murdering cops.
It was September 27, 1994, a date etched into the memory of the Gowanus community. A 13-year-old boy named Nicholas Naquan Hayward Jr., a kid who lived in the same housing complex as Ronald, was playing in one of the stairwells with friends. They were doing what countless city kids did back then, playing cops and robbers, running through the building, laughing, trying to carve out moments of joy in a place that didn't offer many. Nicholas carried a toy gun, a simple plastic prop painted black, the kind sold in dollar stores all over the city. But in Gowanus, even a toy could become a fatal misunderstanding. A housing authority police officer entered the stairwell after responding to reports of kids playing. Within moments, the officer, Brian George, shot Nicholas, claiming he believed the toy was a real weapon. The gun fell to the floor, unmistakably plastic. Nicholas collapsed on the cold stairwell steps, mortally wounded. He was only 13.
In the downtown Ball Hill section of Brooklyn, playing an innocent game with this plastic pop gun that resembles nothing close to a real weapon. I would like to see the officer who shot and killed me.
For the kids of Gowanus, including a young Ronald Herron, the event was a shockwave. It wasn't just another story. It was someone they knew, a face from the same courtyards, the same hallways, the same world. Ronald witnessed the shooting, firsthand saw the immediate aftermath. The trauma of that moment stayed with him. The community erupted in grief and anger. Nicholas's family fought for answers for years. According to reports, Nicholas had been playing, not threatening anyone. He wasn't holding the toy gun when the officer entered, and multiple witnesses said the killing was avoidable. But no charges were ever brought against the officer.
Nicholas Jr. Was born August 26, 1981. He was my firstborn son.
After the death of Nicholas, the atmosphere around Gowanus changed. Police presence increased, tension rose, and many young boys who once spent afternoons playing on the basketball courts or hanging out on the benches began looking at the world differently. Ronald was one of them. Between ages 13 and 14, he started drifting toward the street culture that dominated the neighborhood. It wasn't instant, and it wasn't inevitable, but the trauma around him, the violence he'd seen, and the lack of opportunities all pushed him in that direction. The shooting of Nicholas Hayward Jr. became one of the defining events of his early life, shaping his sense of identity, survival, and distrust of the system. By his mid-teens, Ronald was no longer just a quiet kid from Gowanus. He was beginning a transition, slowly, steadily, into the life that would eventually lead him to become Rah Diggs. At 14, Ronald began spending more time outside, with older kids, neighborhood crews, and the early influences that would shape his future. The Gowanus houses were a maze of courtyards, stairwells, and rooftops, and this is where Ronald Herron became Rah Diggs. He started hustling and caught his first charge for armed robbery aged just 14 and spent 4 years on Rikers Island. For a lot of kids in Gowanus, a first arrest was almost a rite of passage, but Ronald's arrest did something different. It hardened him. It exposed him to people older, more experienced, and more deeply connected to the Brooklyn underworld. October 2000, Ronald was shot twice in the leg over a drug debt. He was taken to Kings County Hospital to recover. He wasn't about to let that slide. From his hospital bed, he ordered his 2 cousins to retaliate. He put this into lyrics in the song with Uncle Murda, rapping, "I didn't respect the shooter, 'cause he shot me in the leg, and 2 days later, the little was dead."
Respect the shooter cause he shot me in the legs, and 2 days later the little nigga was dead. See, if he was smart he would've shot me in the head, cause I could get you shot from a hospital bed.
Once released, it wasn't long before Ronald's trajectory caught the attention of law enforcement in a serious way. He was arrested on murder and drug charges.
And I feel bad because I know Rah Diggs, and Rah Diggs is an honorable dude. You know, I don't know about his situation, but I met him and he was a stand-up individual. And it's sad.
Free Rah Diggs.
Free Rah Diggs, man. Yeah.
He was accused of shooting Frederick Brooks. Ronald was now the leader of blood gang, murderous Mad Dogs, and controlled the drug trade in Boerum Hill, mostly Gowanus and Wyckoff housing apartments. He walked up to Brooks in a lobby of a building in Wyckoff and in front of witnesses, shot him dead. Multiple gunshots to the head and body. People started talking, and it wasn't long before Herron was picked up, charged with drug trafficking and murder. During his years behind bars, he began crafting the persona of Rah Diggs, a name that would later echo across both Brooklyn's rap scene and the Brooklyn Federal Courthouse. Luckily for Ronald, he had people on the outside working hard to make sure he would not be found guilty, and it worked. Due to witness intimidation, no one took the stand, and Ronald was acquitted of the murder charge and served 6 years in Southport Prison on drug trafficking charges. By the time he was released, Ronald Herron was no longer the quiet kid from Gowanus. He was Rah Diggs, and he was ready to take over the streets, the studio, or both.
What do you have in the future coming? I know you're doing something with Waka Flocka and your boy.
Rah Diggs right here, yeah, that's the Murder Team Project, the Solar Dad Brothers. You know, most of the...
He was released in July 2007 and went straight to work in the streets in the booth, teaming up with fellow New York natives Uncle Murda and Waka Flocka Flame to form Murder Team. Rah Diggs was taking literally and continued his control of the murderous Mad Dogs blood gang out of Gowanus, involved in drugs, extortion, kidnapping. At the same time, he was blowing up in the rap scene, as well as beefing with other rappers along the way. In 2010, Rah Diggs was at Jim Jones' recording studio in Harlem. An altercation ensued, and Rah Diggs was thrown out with Jim Jones, telling him to keep that blood shit outside. Rah Diggs smashed a glass door before leaving. Diggs wasn't prepared to let it end there. He got the drop that later that night, Jim would be at Sue's Rendezvous in Mount Vernon, New York, later that night. Diggs showed up with of the murderous Mad Dogs, and on entering the venue, the DJ announced that Rah Diggs was in the venue. Jim heard this and looked over toward Rah Diggs, in what witnesses describe as looking like he had seen a ghost. Diggs had murder on his mind that night and was with his enforcer, Tremaine Cakes Patterson, who was waiting for the nod from Diggs to end Jim Jones. Luckily for Jim, he managed to escape the venue with his life. But Jim Jones wasn't the only industry beef that Ra Diggs had. Rumors swirled of him beating up Mano's brother and shutting down his studio session, although Mano denies this.
There's a story about Ra Diggs and Free Him, about him approaching me at a video shoot, shutting the video down, and making me pack up. That absolutely never happened. There's also a story about Ra Diggs allegedly beating my brother up in the studio. That absolutely never happened.
It was later that same year of 2010 that Ra Diggs' problems really started.
Murder is the charge against an aspiring rapper accused of living the thug life.
They allege that Herron is guilty of racketeering charges for running a drug dealing operation. They also claim he was involved in 3
On October 5th, 2010, Herron was arrested outside a nightclub and charged with drug offenses. Following a search of his vehicle, police found a loaded firearm and body armor. He was later federally indicted on 21 counts, including 3 murders, drug distribution, and violating the RICO Act. May 2008, Diggs street soldiers are working on 423 Baltic Street, hanging out with a dude named Richard Russo. Russo was talking, questioning the legitimacy of Diggs' gangsta, and even went as far as to say he would kill Diggs. Word got back, and he didn't take the threat lightly. On May 9th, 2008, Diggs caught Russo in the same lobby on Baltic Street. He forced him into the elevator and shot him multiple times, leaving him dead. But Diggs wasn't finished yet.
Hey, Bloody, get them niggas some bars, man. Let them niggas know you still got that thing, man.
He want some bars, huh? Hey, yo, I remember the nigga told me he loved me. Took a couple steps, he spent around and he slugged me. Since then, I ain't trust nobody but me. That money in my pocket, nigga, plus I kept that rocket, nigga. Aki, nigga, bunch of big bands, James Harden. Step up shooting niggas like they playing in the garden. I remember them days I was in the box starving. Reminiscing about them days we was in the club starving steady.
Kendall Robinson, a guy who had been involved in multiple violent altercations around Gowanus and Wyckoff apartments, creating a heavy police presence around the area Diggs was trying to run his business. Ra could not allow this. He sent his murderous mad dogs to find Robinson, and it wouldn't take long before one of his hitters had found and shot him outside 185 Nevin Street. Robinson survived the shooting.
What's your explanation of why Ra Diggs is in prison right now?
That's just it's off a lot of hearsay. That's just like.
But, I mean, what was he convicted of?
He's trying to say a bunch of murders and drug trafficking and things of that nature, so like that.
Robinson, who himself was a gang member, was later convicted of the murder of a 16-year-old girl and sentenced to life in prison. Fast forward a little to November 2008, and one of Ra's workers was selling in the Wyckoff Gardens apartments. She was approached by another guy selling crack, named Victor Zapata. He told her she could not sell there anymore. One of Diggs' hitters, named George Maya, went to deal with the issue, but ended up getting shot 5 times by Zapata. Diggs was planning the next move.
The music is basically us talking about the life that we come from, not necessarily saying this is what I did. You know, this is a very intelligent man, and this is not a man who would commit all these crimes and didn't tell you for you to use it against him.
December 27, 2009, Ra Diggs finally catches up with Zapata, spotting him in the Wyckoff Gardens courtyard. Diggs wasted no time, multiple gunshots. Zapata, dead.
Well, Steve, a very dramatic day here. I was in the courtroom as this accused Bloods gang leader and rapper on the rise tried to counter the government's claims that he's a killer drug lord who terrorized his own community.
According to federal authorities, Ra Diggs had by then become the leader of a gang operating in Gowanus and surrounding Brooklyn neighborhoods, responsible for drug distribution, robberies, and multiple murders. Prosecutors alleged that the violence and drug trade were not isolated incidents, but part of a coordinated criminal enterprise. The case was built carefully. Investigators used a combination of wiretaps, informant testimony, undercover work, and surveillance, including analysis of his recorded rap lyrics and music videos, which prosecutors argued served as confessions or admissions of criminal activity.
Aspiring rapper with a long rap sheet of drug and weapons charges tried to convince a jury that he gave up gangbanging for the murderous Mad Dog Bloods to focus on his music after his last prison term.
He and several associates were taken into custody as part of a sweeping federal racketeering case. The charges included murder in aid of racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, narcotics trafficking, firearms offenses, and other racketeering-related crimes.
They allege that Herron is guilty of racketeering charges for running a drug-dealing operation in the Gowanus housing development where he grew up. They also claim he was involved in 3 murders and 3 attempted murders and introduced his music videos as evidence.
In June 2014, the evidence presented by federal prosecutors convinced a jury. Rod Diggs was found guilty on a long list of charges. His rap lyrics, music videos, and online presence, once part of his street identity, were used by the prosecution to corroborate the violent acts, the lifestyle, the threats, and his admissions. With the verdict delivered, the public reality of Rod Diggs shifted overnight, from feared street figure and underground rapper to convicted murderer and gangster, legally, definitively.
I think Rod Diggs, knowing the individual he is, I think he understood what comes with it. If he was engaged in that, I think he was prepared for the outcome of his activities.
In April 2015, the court sentenced him to 12 life sentences plus 105 additional years in prison. The sentence was effectively life without possibility of release. From that moment on, the man once known on the streets of Brooklyn as a gang leader, rapper, and hard-edged figure ceased to exist outside prison walls. Rod Diggs remains incarcerated at maximum security, ADX Florence, the home of the worst criminals. The life sentences and additional years give him no realistic chance of release. His case is often cited in discussions about how rap lyrics and videos have been used in court as evidence against performers, a controversial intersection of art, speech, and criminal justice. Despite his past as a rapper, there is no credible record of new music, mixtapes, collaborations, or label involvement after his conviction. His public presence has effectively ended.
Before I let him give me 120 years, 120 years, imagine that there.
The following documentary contains references to real events reported in the media and in public court records. Some scenes discuss alleged criminal activity and ongoing rivalries that have not been confirmed in court. Everyone mentioned remains innocent until proven guilty. This is created purely for informational and storytelling purposes, not to glorify violence or gang culture.